generous introduction. Let me say to you wonderful graduates of this university, welcome. And I know you thank again your family and friends who helped you get this far, because none of us gets this far on our own. Amen? While I stand here as a person of hope, I will also lead with some provocative ideas backed by a lifetime of social justice activism. And of course, although I'm on the board of governors, these opinions are my own. I want to encourage you to pursue your best self with authenticity, courage, and purpose. I will give some examples of others who have done just that and remind us to be relentless in the pursuit of justice and the salvation of civilization. No small task. But my cheat sheet contains the inspiring words of others. We Antiochians represent diverse backgrounds. Mine is that I come from a family where my mother was denied the opportunity to go to high school. Born in rural Arkansas in 1917, the nearest high school for Black children was in Little Rock, 100 miles away. She was beautiful, brilliant, and self-educated. My father, born in rural Georgia, was illiterate. He was born in 1898, a generation from legal slavery. He was prevented from learning to read and write. The same with other Black men with whom he worked in factories and on assembly lines. They could memorize complex directions and carry them out. They also encouraged me to get my edumacation. They could not pronounce education and certainly could not spell it, but they knew what it was and that it was more than precious. It was a pathway to liberation, as is voting. Voting is the engine that drives democracy. We must fight voter suppression and intimidation. Using diversionary tactics, right-wing activists and commentators whine and perpetuate lies. They claim it is unfair to hold them accountable for the death and destruction their words and actions cause. They are a Greek chorus for political violence, flirting with fascism, partnering with Putin. They would destroy the America of our aspirations. In their upside down view, they ban books, but not assault weapons. They claim to be pro-life, but would rather have women suffer and die than provide medical care. They would rather our children be ignorant than informed. They would rather build walls than bridges. They feed on chaos and confusion. Their false narratives are built on a political, social media, and legal network. However, there is good news. The good news is that we, the people, can save our country, our democracy. Our knowledge is power. We are Antiochians. We can and we must lead by example. In the spirit of Horace Mann, authenticity, courage, and purpose is my personal narrative mantra and the connective thread of my research and writing. I was raised in the Black church. We were taught the 10 Commandments. These are not suggestions or TikTok postings, but commands to love your neighbor as yourself. The Black community of my youth and upbringing taught responsibility, integrity, honesty, courage, compassion, and service to others. And yes, the title of my book, Blackbird Singing, was inspired by Paul McCartney's song, Blackbird, not Beyonce. It's a tribute to the American Civil Rights Movement, America's freedom movement, specifically the Little Rock Nine. Sojourner Truth is the signature voice for the genesis of that book. She lived from 1797 to 1883 and witnessed America's growth and turmoil, slavery, the Civil War, emancipation, and participated in the beginning of the fight for women's suffrage. Because the lives of Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman overlapped, people often confuse them or conflate their stories, but their contributions were distinct. Harriet Tubman, an escaped slave known as Moses, was a chief conductor of the Underground Railroad. A scout, spy, guerrilla soldier, and nurse for the Union Army, she is considered the first African-American woman to serve in the military, a real Black Panther. Hers is a story of courage and purpose. Historian Sarah Hopkins Bradford wrote about her in an effort to successfully save her home when it was being up for sale. I'd like to read just a segment of that so we know our history and our heritage and the rich legacy we have. Without knowing whom to trust or how near the pursuers might be, Harriet Tubman carefully felt her way. She managed to apply to the right people for food and sometimes for shelter, but often her bed was only the cold ground and her watcher, the stars at night. Now we only have to show up to vote. In declaring her 1972 presidential bid, Shirley Chisholm stated that she was proud being both Black and a woman, but she was the candidate for all of the people of America. She said, "I have faith in the American people. I believe we are smart enough to correct our mistakes, to have the vision and the courage to make it possible." Her words remind us that democracy is not a spectator sport. Author and advocate Maya Angelou worked with the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and with Malcolm X. She delivered the poem On the Pulse of Morning at the 1993 inauguration of President Bill Clinton. Her poem was an anthem of hope, ending with these words: "For a new beginning, do not be wedded forever to fear, yoked eternally to brutishness. Here, on the pulse of this new day, you may have the grace to look up and out into your sister's eyes and into your brother's face, your country, and say simply, very simply, with hope, good morning." Maya Angelou's words speak truth to power, along with calls for decency, compassion, peace, justice, freedom, and yes, love. Deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. We will overcome with authenticity, courage, and purpose. We must work passionately for justice, to save our precious earth from being destroyed by greed and ignorance, to secure the future for our children and grandchildren. They are counting on us, on you, graduates. We have no choice but to win. Thank you.